Welcome, everyone. Excited to introduce the Providence team today, who's here to talk about how they've been reimagining the caregiver development through the usage of Degreed. I'd like to introduce Darcy Hall, who's the VP of Learning and Development, Carrie Hearns-Smith, who's the AVP of Talent Cultivations and Effectiveness, and Thomas Nielsen, who is the Principal Consultant of the Degreed platform. I'll hand it off to you, lady, and Tom.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Do you want me to get us started?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending. We're going to be talking about our journey at Providence as we moved from a very traditional learning management system. How many of you are in healthcare? A lot of you are in healthcare or public. So one of the things that you'll find about when we started to think about how we wanted to move the organization to a more modern, innovative experience than what they had today. So when I started at Providence 7 years ago, the organization was 80% instructor-led training. We had 13 learning management systems. We were a decentralized organization. We had clinical education, we had professional development education that were separate. They weren't integrated at the time. And so the desire was to create a more modernized, personalized learning experience for the entire organization. So one of the things that we started to think about is what would that look like? What's the vision? How do we increase access? And so those were the first starting points of our journey. Number one, create the vision. What do we want for our caregivers? And two, where do we want to go? And so what's that strategy that underpins it? And so that's really how we got started on this journey. You can see from the slide down here, if you're like, who is Providence? We are a 7-state, West Coast-based organization. We have about 120,000 employees. All of our employees are called caregivers. So if you think our topic today is just specific about clinicians, it is not. We are going to talk about all of our entire employee base and how we manage that going forward. And as you can see, we are a faith-based Catholic nonprofit health system. So we got a lot of things going on and challenges that hopefully we can share with you, how we got started, why we got started, and then you probably saw the word reimagine. So when we got started, it was in 2018. We launched Degreed early 2019, and then this weird thing called COVID hit. And that helped us in learning a little bit because it did springboard us and our workforce from moving out of instructor-led. We shut everything down. There was no instructor-led education that went on. Clinical education, none of it. We partnered with our EPIC team, which many of you probably know of, electronic health records. Our EPIC team, because they were doing a lot of instructor-led training, all caregiver orientation, so new employees coming in, we had to move all of that to electronic as well. And lo and behold, we had this thing called Degreed. That we were just getting started, and we really didn't know what we were completely getting ourselves into at that time. Post-COVID, we learned a lot, and that's where you're going to see when we talk about reimagination and why I have my counterparts here who are far smarter than I am on how we drive this forward. But that's when the reimagination came, was, all right, we've got people on the platform. We're starting to think about a different way of experiencing learning from traditional, we push learning out to you, you take learning, or I take it for compliance or regulatory, into how do we start to drive a learning experience that our caregivers have access to and can drive themselves. And so that's now springboarding why we said, okay, it's time to reimagine and take that next step in the evolution of our learning experience. So that's kind of who we are and from which we came. And I'll hand it off to Carrie to talk a little bit about where we're headed.
So when I came in, it was 2 years ago, so we were just kind of coming out of that COVID fog which lasted probably a year longer than everybody anticipated it to last. So having looked at, known Degreed, number one, collectively, actually, across the stage between Thomas and Darcy and I, we have about 30 years of Degreed experience. We all actually worked together back in the day in Xerox, and we actually brought Degreed in as our primary platform soon after they just hit the enterprise level. So you had Bank of America, you had MasterCard, and you had Xerox. We were the big three logos. So we've watched Degreed grow up. And so there's a uniqueness in that factor in that all three of us are very like-minded in the vision of Degreed. We've seen it evolve. We know where it can go. So when I came on board and saw how it was being used, and in the crisis, it was wonderful that it made it through, got everybody through COVID, but the way the platform was being utilized, it was a holding tank of just stuff. And so the first thing we did was we stepped back and looked at it and said, we really need to rethink our strategy. We're misusing, we're basically breaking the platform wherever we possibly can because we're not using it the way it's designed to be used. And so we stepped back, we shored up our strategy. We spent a year cleaning it up and getting more governance around it. And I actually last year brought our learning administration leader here because she's like, I just don't know what I can do with this platform and how we administer it and everything else. And I'm like, let me show you. And so she kind of had her eyes opened last year, which was amazing. And what her and her team did to clean things up, to get operational excellence going with all of it. So creating good, healthy protocol and processes and things like that as to how we're using it. Then came the strategy around, okay, how do we really make it this inviting experience and bring our caregivers into it? And so we relaunched last September. We spent a year cleaning up. We spent a lot of time thinking about the strategy. How do we want to optimize the platform? That was also a renewal time for us in our contract with Degreed. So working with Andy and PK, it was really about, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to be all in. So let's turn everything on, let's go for it, and figure out how we optimize. So that meant we needed to really start thinking about our skills-based strategy, our opportunities strategy. So all of those came into play. And when we relaunched in September, we made a very, Brad threw out the word choiceful. I love that word. I think it's a new word for me. We always said intentional, but choiceful, I like that. So we were really thoughtful about what we really needed to do. And we knew if we came out with this big overwhelming kind of splash, it probably wouldn't get what it needed from the ear and the support and everything else that we need, because we still have a workforce that's in a lot of overwhelm, a lot of burnout. It's healthcare. So we kind of came out with this light splash. And we focused on 5 universal skills to get people thinking about skills and to be able to talk about this conversation around being skills-based. So we have 5 universal skills, and then we decided, why not just kind of create this as, this is going to be an ongoing trajectory that we start bringing in all of these concepts and help people take it in bite-sized pieces. So we set up quarterly releases. So every quarter now we have a new release, and not necessarily a lot of new stuff, but something that's targeting the themes that we're already picking up on. So in September of last year, it was the 5 universal skills. We introduced the market opportunities marketplace, but we didn't have a lot there because we wanted to focus on the skills. In January, it was also Mentor Month. We introduced the opportunities marketplace with our apprenticeships and our Prov mentorship program. So playing off of timing and how we build and optimize this slowly is where we're getting the traction. So now we'll have another in March, and in that we're going to focus still heavily on the universal skills that we're working on, but we'll add more opportunities to the opportunity marketplace too. So where you see us looking at building out things now, the other side of this is that skills hub mentality. How are we getting people to really think about this being the place to go for everything? And we're also in the same vein along this process, reimaging everything about learning and development and what we're bringing. So that's where you'll see the Embrace Your Future campaign. That is something that's evolving and coming out now too. We brought it out very quietly in our January release. We're gonna have a big splash with it in March. And you'll see different imaging that we're really directing it to our caregivers that you own your development. We see the potential in you. Your development matters. You're in charge of it. So it's the quiet voice and the quiet concepts that we're infusing between our change management and our marketing, our communications, but also this ever-present growing utilization of the tool and the platform in the way that people can take it in bite sizes and start to absorb it and see the difference.
And I think also it's a very deliberate choice of universal skills, or you might call them core or whatever moniker you put on them, but that fits into the caregiver development story that we're putting together, because it really is about how do we bring everybody into the platform to start that conversation around skills. They're rating themselves, they're updating their talent profile. Carrie mentioned our use of the opportunity marketplace was a little bit slow. We are rolling it out, but it all depends on that data being there, because if nobody has rated themselves, they're not doing anything with skills, well, okay, great. It's a marketing tool. It's another little post-it note that says there's an opportunity there for you. But to really start driving that analytics at the back end to see what are our internal pipelines for all these opportunities that we're envisaging to meet these needs that our organization has, both in terms of current and future workforce, that's really gonna help us. So we have seen a significant uptick, even with a very soft launch. I'm gonna say the gateway drug is universal skills. It's terrible, but it's really how we're hooking people. We're getting them in, we're getting them to see the relevance and the importance to them at an individual level. And as we have seen an upswing of personal skill ratings against our universal skills. That 500% is the smallest upswing. Now, if you look at the actual numbers, okay, well, we're still there's thousands upon thousands of people coming in and doing it, but because of the size of our organization, even getting up to 10,000 odd people against any one of these, okay, that's 8-10% of our organization, but it's a huge upswing from thinking about communication, for instance, as an example. When we started, a couple of hundred people had actually rated themselves. Now we're well above 6,000 people have engaged with that. And not only are they rating themselves, but we're seeing an upswing in terms of manager ratings. So everybody is starting to get in on it, and they're really starting to talk. Managers, peers are rating, people are using and re-rating themselves at a much greater rate than ever before. And the re-ratings are actually pointing in the direction that we would hope for, up. So that's significant, especially when you're starting to add those kind of numbers, when you're seeing a couple of hundred, and then you're seeing a positive rating ranking when you're adding thousands of people. I think that's really speaking to the impact that the programming is having, but we're also starting to see that ability as we're rolling out other opportunities in the marketplace. And we're actually looking at apprenticeships as one of the key ways in which we can drive, and I think we're way behind the slides here, but that is really starting to give us that opportunity to not only present those internally, but also to start talking about the skills that are going to be needed, the skills that we have, because people have the skills internally. And for a lot of the opportunities that we're putting, very frequent word, these developmental programs that we're putting in place for people to take up, to embrace their future, to really put themselves in the driving seat for future careers that have a meaningful impact to their colleagues, their communities, and themselves, and put them on a trajectory that perhaps they never thought possible before. through these. And it's skill driven, but it's enabled by those conversations they're having with their managers, with their peers, and through the awesome educational benefits that we also are putting into play to make this a reality, so that the affordability aspect, that challenge, is really taken out of the equation. That shouldn't be a concern. It is. It's a very real concern for very many people, but with what we're putting in place, that is being significantly improved. And yeah, that's...
And we've really tried to marry with the platform our education benefit that Thomas was referencing. And obviously a huge focus for us is our underserved populations and helping them find the opportunity and removing the barriers for them to develop. A big effort that we're working on this year to launch by the end of the year is our dynamic career pathing, skills-based career pathing, so that there's more availability for them to have career exploration opportunities based on the skills that they have or the skills that they want to develop in. What roles are there, skill adjacencies and job duty adjacencies that they could pick multiple paths if they want, or try a path through an apprenticeship program, for example, in the opportunity marketplace, and then be able to build from there. And we've also, part of our educational benefit is we've opened up to also covering professional expenses, which allows our audience too, if they're finding through even working in Degreed and searching and finding different type of certifications and things like that, they can use their education benefit for that. So that's, again, blending that all together to help people see that there's this one gateway you can go through to learn, connect, and grow, and utilize it in one place. There we go.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, any questions popping up? Feel free to shout out. Yes.
And are you still back-ending this with 13 LMSs?
No, no. So one of the things that when we started this process, like I said, even before, one of the things that Providence and maybe many of you have been a part of is the beauty of growth by acquisition. So that's how we inherited 13 LMSs. And one of the goals we had when we started to look at our learning technology stack was the plan was to put Degreed over the top of everything so that we could start to pull things away and our employees wouldn't have a freak out moment that they're losing something or it's changing. So that was the original intent, and we've done that now. We only have a couple different instantiations, and that typically is through small affiliate that they're continuing to keep their own learning management system for reasons either from a regulatory or compliance standpoint. Everybody else now, for those of you who are in healthcare, we're on HealthStream. It's not my favorite. I'll go on record to say that. It's not my favorite. And my goal is to eventually, I think Carrie and Thomas share this goal of eventually looking at something that's going to provide better experience for our caregivers and is more integrated into Degreed and where we want to go with the technology. So as Carrie and Thomas are talking through this, we're evolving and really thinking about, we started with a learning experience. Like, what's the experience we want our caregivers to have when they're on a unit floor? So those of you that are, whether you're in healthcare, a synergy, I was talking to a colleague the other day, a synergy around retail even. If you have a retail workforce, they're on the floor, call center, they're in a call center. All of us that are trying to design learning experiences for on-the-go workforce, and that's really in healthcare where we look at the big focuses, providing care. So how do we get to them when they're on the unit floor? And so that was kind of the initial first exposure into the learning experience we wanted to have. Then came along Carrie and Thomas to the party and others and said, it's time to take it next level to thinking about it as a talent marketplace. How do we start to look beyond learning to experiences, opportunities to apprentice? So one of my goals or visions for the organization, and I'm fairly vocal about this too, is talent acquisition is not going to get you the workforce you want in the future. Like, take your 1990s talent acquisition practices and put those in your pocket and stand up internships, externships, apprenticeship. Get your workforce through apprentice programs. Get your workforce through internship programs. Those are the folks that are going to build our future, not post a job, get a job. You'll still get talent that way, but I really believe if we don't start to figure out as a learning organization how we do a better job of partnering with our talent acquisition teams to say, you can't be a one-hit wonder. You got to do it differently, and you got to think about learning much more proactively than we have in the past, especially in healthcare, because we're not laying people off like some industry. We're begging and borrowing and building the workforce. We're still looking for talent to come into the workforce. How do we do that? How do we take somebody that works at Pizza Hut? We know what the skills are at Pizza Hut, and we know what a medical assistant skills are. How do we look at skill adjacency, and how do we reskill them, bring them in through apprentice, and reskill them as a medical assistant? That's where I believe we need to be headed, and that's how Thomas and Carrie are thinking about Degreed and how that enables that future state vision. Go ahead.
With Degreed, one of the things we've experienced in our organization is overwhelming. The minute they enter on the page, it's like, where do I start?
With Degreed, it seems like a ginormous library of educational information. How did y'all introduce the Degreed featured page, if you happen to have such thing, to the point where the individual is not just so bombarded with so much information and you are focused on specificality of what their need is?
Yeah, we, so I'll let Carrie and Thomas talk about now. What we did when we started was we did a lot of demos, tours, Genius Bar, get out into the different facilities. And keep in mind, we started and then COVID hit. And then we couldn't get out. So we created our new caregiver orientations. So what we did is say, every new employee that came in, the first thing that they would get, we worked with our pre-boarding team on this, was a link to Degreed. They would go in and they would find their account, capture their account, and they would sign in and they would go through the new caregiver orientation virtually first before they went into the unit. And that was how we started to get populations in. The other thing we did, which is kind of odd to some people, is we have built our physician leadership program, and we started with our physicians getting in with one single learning journey to come in. And so that was another way. So we tried to baby step them. Mistakes that were made was assuming that people would just go in and create their profile and add skills. Like, that didn't work. And so hindsight, I would have gone back if we would initially not been in this COVID era and really worked with more of the units at the local level to do, whether it's a talent, learning, some sort of event where we're encouraging people to go in and set their profiles up, and people were there to help them. We needed hand-holding. We are not Google. We're not, they're not, people didn't understand it. They were very used to a push mentality of, well, you push me my compliance training and you push me my regulatory training, and what do you mean I'm gonna go out and start surfing around? The other thing we did was a lot of you can't break it. Like, if you get somewhere, close out, start over again. You can't break it. It's not like HealthStream where you have your little to-do list and it tells you, what you need to be taking. We really wanted to start to encourage people. So we created a campaign early on called Creative by Nature, or Curious by Nature, Creative by Nature, Curious by Nature. And that campaign was around curiosity, just get out and drive, learn. We don't care if you go and learn. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so how to make craft beer. Go learn how to do that. That's great. But we just wanted to get people out into the platform was the plan in the beginning. I don't know if you have anything.
And it's interesting too, because we looked, when we were reimagining and relaunching last September, we pulled out the whole Curious by Nature campaign. That was 2018-19. And we talked to some caregivers and we thought it and really tried to socialize it a little bit. And that's what COVID did to all of us, though. I'm not in a curious place anymore right now. I'm in a place of, okay, I'm just getting past the fear. Now I need something I feel like I can control. And that's where we've evolved into this Embrace Your Future Now campaign, and to try to meet people where they are now in a very changed world. And that was the other aspect of, we shifted the approach a bit in September, a lot, I would say, to say, let's go after this in a slow growth. Let's have this grassroots and let it grow organically and see what we get. And honestly, we had great success at Xerox when we did that years ago. So we picked up on that, and that's where we thought, okay, give them something to look forward to every quarter, but make it the dosage size so consumable, so easy, and the fact that everybody is working on the same thing. So you mentioned the featured page. We really amped up the featured page. We had 2 things on that featured page for them to really think about and learn more about. One was the 5 universal skills. One was just a light introduction to the opportunities marketplace. If that's all they go in and learn, that's okay. In another quarter, we've got more coming. We'll bring them back again. But it's those people that, and where Thomas was mentioning, the universal skills plan and path, where we were taking them, gave them a lot of information to keep them moving through that quarter. So for those that glommed onto it, grabbed hold of it, they're still there, and they're the ones that are rating themselves and talking to their manager about rating them. Or if it's a manager saying, hey, caregivers, team, I want you doing this. This is cool stuff. And it's just around these 5 skills. Pick one of them. And so that's making it more digestible, I think, and manageable for people in a time when we still are very much in a recovery mode in healthcare. And as you all know, I mean, it's a tough environment. And so people need this sense of, I don't want to overwhelm, I need to be able to control, but I also want to feel like I'm doing something, I'm growing. And so we're trying to give that in very digestible way.
It's a tightrope act, because at the same time as we want to give people as much guidance of what our flagship programs are, and the catalog can be overwhelming. And part of the answer to that for us has been really utilizing all the features and functionality of Degreed in terms of org announcements that are all, always changing, but pushing people in a certain way, even though we want them to embrace their own future. Now, embracing their own future is really understanding how they can personalize their experience by using skills as they start to explore, if they want to. But otherwise, there are a lot of these promotional pieces we can do within Degreed that drive them to the high impact programs that start to open up, okay, what else can we do? So the next time they actually dive into the catalog, little things like, I've added a skill, now I can use that to find other content that's related to that. Well, at the top of all of those, we have our endorsed programs so that we showcase key things. If that's all you have time for, and you want to find what Providence is really driving towards, those are your best bets. Now, for the curious people, go explore. Hey, switch on the external part of the marketplace, the catalog as well, and really go for it. But there are so many things we can do within Degree to really help people do the most with limited time and perhaps also limited interest until they have been sold on what they can really do, what's in it for them, which is really driving to the caregiver development story.
I want to make sure that everyone gets to their next session. We're at time here. Obviously, a great conversation, so thank you so much for
Yes.
sharing this. Obviously, we're all here for another couple days, so certainly connect with them. I know there were a couple other questions, so definitely connect, but thank you so much.
And we'll be here for a bit, so
Yes.
please, if you have questions, come get us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.